Good evening, please, and welcome to XTV's news broadcast for Thursday, August 15th, 2024. Making the headlines tonight, Natural Resources Minister explains how hospital land was chosen and price decided. 3 Belize City bus operators object to e-buses pilot, and police seek person of interest in connection with Punta Gorda murder. We take our first break and return at the news in detail.
The hurricane season is here. Are you prepared?
Today, Minister of Natural Resources Cordell Hyde went into great deal about the process that was followed to arrive at a new location for the University Hospital.
As you probably saw in our press release, Ministry of Health went to Cabinet some months ago and made a compelling case to say that where we were proposing to put the hospital on UB land was not the most ideal, was really not workable for them, pointing out that the location was 9 kilometers from the roadside, which is 6 miles, that you had to build a road, that getting there would have required going through a circuitous nature. I don't know what that means, but ultimately they didn't have water, didn't have light, didn't have internet. All those kind of infrastructure would have to go in there, and you're talking about virgin territory. You're not talking about existing road or dirt road or anything like that. And so that would have represented an undue burden also for workers, for staff, and for people who need to access the hospital. So Cabinet was convinced that ultimately the professionals, the technocrats at the Ministry of Health were the right ones to determine which location is best for them. And so we left that in their hands. They then approached the Ministry of Natural Resources technocrats to check to see what is available in that particular location, which is to say between the Hector Silva airstrip and Guanacaste Park. Why? Because the technocrats at Ministry of Health deemed that to be the primary nexus, the best meeting point, best middle ground for patients coming from the west, patients coming from the far south. And so they came to us, our technocrats did research, presented to them that one, there is no government land there, and two, that you have about 6 private parcels there. 2 of them have erections on them, the other 2 are some ways off the road, and there were 2 owned by one owner who that was roadside. The Ministry of Health people indicated that that's the land they wanted. That was ideally what they were envisioning, and so negotiation ensued. The private landowners got their valuation, which came in at $9.3 million. You'd say that's kind of high for 15 acres of land, but the valuer for their part argued that in 2020 a lot for $100,000 was sold for $100,000 just nearby, and that they were in the process of finalizing a subdivision of those 15 acres into lots and commercial properties to translate that into income. And so based on that, they came up with this 9.3 million. Government valuer came up with 6.2 million. You'd wonder how 2 valuers look at the same land and come up with varying value, but our valuer for the government made a bunch of deductions. He conceded that yes, land was selling in that era as long as it was 4 years ago for $100,000 a lot, and in fact it was increasing incrementally, because in 2018 lots were being sold there. People were buying lots there for $65,000, and then in 2019 they were buying for $75,000, and then in 2020 lots were sold there for $100,000. So based on that, they came up with the high figure that they came, but the valuer for the government made some deductions based on roads and survey costs and all that kind of stuff, and so it ended up being 6.2 on the government side, 9.3 on their side, and negotiation.
Hyde was also asked to address the fact that the new hospital land is smack in the middle of 2 flood-prone zones and is not far from DWS sewage treatment ponds.
Well, the people in the technocrats in our ministry felt that the land is, that particular parcel of land or parcels of land is elevated as compared to the areas that are nearby that's low lying and prone to flooding. So they felt like that particular area wouldn't be susceptible to that kind of flooding. The truth of the matter is that the entire country is flood prone. I mean, we're living in 2024, and with climate change and all that has happened in this country, there is no perfect perfect location. You have a very serious rainfall, or you have very serious weather, you're going to have flooding. As it relates to the bridge, that's a serious matter. I don't forget about the new hospital. You're talking about not having access to Belmopan, not having access to the entire Kaya district if you're coming from the city. Forget the hospital. So it's incumbent upon government to figure out a way to get that bridge in the shortest possible time. Not just because of the hospital, but because what it means in terms of access to the entire western part of the country in the event of a very, very serious calamity.
But how will you manage I believe the sewage ponds in the same area so close to a hospital?
Well, the technocrats say that it is located like 5 acres away from the proposed hospital site. To be precise, 4.8 acres. That is some distance versus the fact that you have very nice houses from Cahoon Walk and those areas that's located 200 feet from the sewage pond, very, very close to it. So that's something that they have to manage, but I'm no expert, and I guess the expert will have to determine that for us, whether 5 acres is space enough between the sewage lagoon and that kind of development. Our technocrats believe it is, but
Do you know the owner, Kenny Zeng?
No, I don't know the person at all.
The Prime Minister conceded that the investment ambassador, Mr. Diab, that he might have a relationship with Mr. Zeng. Would you classify this as a sweetheart deal?
Well, I just explained to you how this location came about, how the Ministry of Health went to Cabinet, proposed or convinced Cabinet that the proposed location in UB was not cutting it, that they needed a more ideal location. They settled on this location. They went through the various parcels. They determined that this was their parcel. I don't know that fits the definition of a sweetheart deal.
Minister of Infrastructure Development, Honorable Julius Espat, also spoke on the change in location.
It started that the loan was negotiated with the Ministry of Economic Development. So we were informed of that, and we knew that a hospital would be built, and we knew that it would be on the UB property. So that is what Cabinet knew. Then Ministry of Health lobbied for a presentation to be made in Cabinet, where there was a couple doctors came in, I think led by Miss Diaz, and they made a plea that they didn't believe that it was feasible for them, from their point of view, to have it at the back of Belmopan. And so that's where the lobby started. And then we found out that the Ministry of Economic Development took that lobby serious, and then they looked for possible locations, and they found one. Last Cabinet, the Deputy informed us that they were working with the Ministry of Natural Resources, with their evaluators, along with private evaluators, to be able to come up with a number. And that's how it was derived. Every option has positives and negatives. That's just what it is. I'm an architect, so when we build, you look at all options. UB could have been a good option with time. It would have. We haven't looked at it from our ministry in detail, but it would have meant that you'd have to spend $6 million or maybe more in infrastructure to reach the hospital. And that could be good, because then other people would benefit from the infrastructure going in. So that's a positive thing for that side. But the expediency of having the hospital being built, we would have taken maybe 2-3 years to get that project on the way. And so I think speaking with the Saudis, they wanted it now. And so that's where the option came about. That's it is in a flood-prone zone. I think the deputy said it well. He believes it is in a flood-prone zone, and that if you have it there and the road floods, have the ability to take your patients to Belize City. Well, if you have it in Belmopan and you have a flood, the same thing will happen, because it's on the main highway. We know of the flooding areas, and we have started to address it. I think Plus TV knows it more than the other media there in Belmopan. They saw that we are working on the J&W bridge already, which is the first phase of making that area have free flow of water. So that bridge is about 75% completed. And then we have a project called the George Price Rehabilitation Project that is on the Ministry of Finance's desk, and that one incorporates bridges in the Mount Pleasant area that would also alleviate that area. So with time we will address all those issues. We recently addressed the one in Roaring Creek where after the road was built we noticed that there was a flooding that you couldn't cross the Roaring Creek Bridge. We have already addressed that part of it already. So all proposals have their pros and cons, and we have to look at it in detail, and the job of the media is to dissect it and bring out the truth. And I think that is what has been achieved, and I think that's positive.
There is a criticism that the investment ambassador, Mr. Diab, is friendly with the Kenny Zeng, the owner of the land. Now, when you were in opposition, you drew a hard line against these types of deals, sweetheart deals. Do you consider this to be one of those?
I don't know the relationship the both of them have. I don't know the gentleman personally. I know the ambassador because he's part of the campaign team for the party. But
3 bus operators who provide service in Belize City have joined forces and have written a letter of objection to Minister of Transport Honorable Ronald Ferguson regarding the e-buses pilot in Belize City. They are Locust Shuttle, the Moss and Sons Bus Service, and City Shuttle Limited. Their message is that despite fear of political victimization, they are breaking their silence, otherwise they will be run out of business by our own government. They note that they don't have a problem with competition, but yes, with unfair competition, and describe this as the case here given that the City Council is using free buses to go head-to-head with the private sector stakeholders who have financial obligations. The operators state that despite what the mayor said, the e-buses routes are cutting into theirs and are taking away from their primary clientele, the students whose fare, according to the trio of bus operators, has been brought down to only $1. The bus operators say that since the introduction of the e-buses, they have been taking daily losses and believe this is unsustainable. The bus operators are now demanding the publication of the monthly financial and non-financial data collected under the pilot, including number of passengers, revenues, and expenses. They are also requesting that all revenues collected be passed on to the stakeholders on the basis that the expenses are covered by the EU and the UNDP. Bus operators also want a guarantee that there won't be any more e-buses introduced in Belize City. The letter was copied to Mayor Bernard Wagner and to the UNDP representative in Belize. On Wednesday evening, the funders, that is, and government partners introduced a joint statement to clarify the outcomes and objectives of the project. Notably, they generalized those by stating they aim to enhance access to affordable, reliable, and modern energy services while advancing low-carbon transportation. But as to the concerns of the operators, the release only states, open quote, "We recognize the concerns of the private sector and their critical investment in Belize's bus industry. As a result, this pilot project is designed not only to transform the transport sector, but also explores innovative business models and financing mechanisms which are vital for cultivating a more advanced private sector-driven development process," end quote. The majority of the remainder of the joint statement then focuses on the next 3 e-buses that will be deployed inter-district. According to the release, those buses will be managed by the private sector, but will remain the property of the UNDP. The release states, open quote, "This phase will focus on evaluating the financial feasibility of private sector management, developing a comprehensive business case, and outlining key commercial terms, ultimately aiming to facilitate a potential public-private partnership to bridge the gap between the public and private sector," end quote. The body of a man was discovered this morning by the seawall on Front Street in Punta Gorda, Toledo. The man has since been identified as 44-year-old Jennison Vernon. The body was observed with several cut wounds, and Vernon's body was transported to the Punta Gorda Hospital, where it now awaits a post-mortem examination. Police say they are seeking one person of interest as their investigation continues. Earlier this week, the Ministry of the Blue Economy announced that it is exploring the possibility of launching a Pearl Culture initiative along with their industry's innovation consultant, Nancy Marin. She pitched the idea and it was supported by the higher-ups in the ministry. Last week, as part of their feasibility studies, they visited an oyster pearl farm in Mexico. We spoke with Marin on the expectations for the initiative.
11 years ago, I started thinking about building industry in Belize and started doing some research about the assets that we have in Belize. I coincidentally came across a project in India on cultured pearls. And I started doing investigations and found out that it is quite possible to do it in Belize with some species that we're supposed to have in our waters. So now fast forward to today, I proposed it to the Ministry of Blue Economy, and the CEO and Minister of Blue Economy gravitated to the idea of doing that because our country really needs industry, and we need to think out of the box, you know, and do things a little bit differently than we have been doing through the years. So we're just really creeping right now. We're in the initial phases of the feasibility study, but I can tell you that it looks really good. And the two species that I had identified 11 years ago and hoping that we have, it looks like we do have it now. Studies have to be done with the technical people at fisheries to find out if we have a healthy population or not. That's the next phase of the project, to find out if indeed we have a healthy population. But even if we don't, that won't be a problem because there are ways to boost it up through the culture.
We asked about the possibilities for employment in such an industry and for entrepreneurs to take it up.
It's more technical than labor intensive. We will need to partner with somebody we haven't identified yet to train our people. Now I still have a meeting on the 20th with the Minister of Blue Economy and their heads of departments to really inform them. But what we learned in Sonora, Mexico, is that it will not take a huge amount of capital to get to where we are, but it will be labor intensive to start with. After we have the infrastructure, have our people trained, it should be a walk in the park.
More or less, how much time will it take to actually see something come to fruition?
I believe that I'm hoping, fingers crossed, everything goes well. By the end of 2025, we should have seen the initial establishment of it's not going to be long because we have the natural resources. And this is what I was saying with my research, that I really dug deep and read, you know, all the mining reports and everything to know what do we have in Belize naturally that we can build on, that won't cost our government or our people the kind of money that we don't have. And you asked earlier whether we want to work with entrepreneurs or how that's going to go. And I am really hoping that we can develop the program where we can have various farms and entrepreneurs can be the ones that manage those farms.
Marin and the team from the Ministry of the Blue Economy next intend to visit the Yucatan to see an area where sea salt sequestration, that is happening. That is a second initiative the ministry plans to pursue. After the break, homes being built for low-income families in Momopan halfway completed. Stay with us.
Nando's Wholesale is your market leader in Belize's wholesale
Last year, drivers in rural Belize paid for their license plates and vehicle license, but had to be going around showing only their receipts to authorities when asked. That's because the Department of Transport had run out of plates and stickers. This was recently repeated, but late Wednesday, the department issued a release announcing it has successfully procured a new batch of license plates and stickers. It invited all those who have yet to get theirs to visit the respective transport offices around the country. The department has committed to work to resolve its issues so as to ensure a more efficient process moving forward. On Tuesday, for the Governor General's swearing in of Dr. Osmond Martinez as a representative for Toledo East at Belize House in Belmopan, the independent media was not allowed to be in the hall for the event. They were regulated to wait along the ring road outside of the main entrance to the compound. Only the government press office was inside the room. We note that for past such ceremonies, the media has been allowed to cover the entire event. Minister of Education, Honorable Francis Fonseca, said he frowned upon the shutout of the media.
I should tell you that I was the first one to raise that issue when I got in, because when I arrived there, I saw the press outside, basically on the street. And I thought that was absolutely uncalled for. So when I got there, I raised it, and I was told that it was protocol, the Governor General's office protocol. I don't understand it, and I don't, support it. But it's their house. Well, it's the people's house, but the Governor General was having an official ceremony, and they said the government press office would provide the feed to everybody else. But I agree with you. There's no proper explanation for any of that. No, the press should be allowed in. They're swearing in a servant, supposedly a servant of the people. The people should be able to see that firsthand.
The Deputy Prime Minister, Honorable Cordell Hyde, was questioned today about comments he made during his Emancipation Day speech. The DPM stated that every time an SOE is called to order, we falter as a country. Today, he clarified that his statement was not meant to be taken alone, but as part of his entire speech. He said his main message was that there is a lack of love in Belizean communities, especially black ones, when compared to 50 years ago.
Well, if you listen to the entirety of the speech, all 1,050 words of the speech, you would find that those 8 words are not so, they're not as critical as the fact that we are not in a good place in this country, and our communities are not in a good place, and particularly our black communities, and that what's happening now really hurts our grandparents and our parents, because they could not have envisioned 50 years ago that we would be in this situation right now. Like I can tell you, whenever I talk to my father, like he laments that fact that 50 years ago in the black community there was so much love, and now we are here at this point where we are killing each other wantonly, mercilessly. And so the speech was about saying that all of us, in government, outside of government, our families, our schools, our entire communities have to take a stock of where we are and see what it is that we need to do better, and see how it is that we can come together, because ultimately we're one people, no matter how we look, no matter where we come from, no matter what our names are, no matter who our parents are, we are one people. And when one family or one community goes awry, the entire country goes awry. And so it was about us taking stock and taking responsibility for where we are, and so that is within the context that those 8 words appeared. But there's 1,050 words, I think.
A University of Belize student is claiming that he was the victim of police brutality. The student, Omar Matos, was reportedly involved in a small traffic accident on Monday night in Belmopan. Reports are that after police appeared on the scene to investigate, Matos and the officers got into an argument which escalated. Matos allegedly was beaten severely by the officers and had to be transported to the Western Regional Hospital for treatment. Matos' right eye was injured during the incident, and he fears he may lose his vision in that eye. Matos faces charges for both the traffic mishap and the altercation with the police officers, and is handcuffed to his hospital bed as he continues to get medical treatment. He is being represented by attorney Arthur Soldiger, who shared additional details of the attack.
He had basically started school at UB, left the campus to go and buy some stationery supplies. And while doing that, there was an accident. As a result, the police came on the scene, accosted him, and there was some back and forth. They're alleging that he resisted arrest and assaulted them. That's their allegation. There is a pattern of behavior as it relates to my client where he has been extorted for money, beaten, have his properties deprived of him by other officers in other areas of the country. But he actually sustained serious injuries in police custody inside the station, the cell at the station. My client is maintaining that he did not do anything to warrant the treatment that he received. There is no circumstance justifiable for the police to brutalize a citizen in custody. He received such a beating, his eye, I believe it is his left eye, had to be stitched up at the hospital. He suffered tendon damage to his right hand, bruise all over, stemming from a minor traffic incident. Resisting arrest and assaulting a police officer, those were the charges that were given to him. He was arraigned today on those. No, he's out on bail presently.
The Commissioner of Police, Chester Williams, has since spoken out in defense of his officers and said that Matos had kicked one of the officers out of the cargo pan of the police mobile while it was in transit. Williams also said that Matos had been detained multiple times in the past for traffic offenses, refusing to provide samples. After the break, 95 MSMEs to benefit from 800,000 grant funding over 2 years. Stay tuned.
This plan, I can't leave this.
inaugurate the upgrade of the Banana Bank Farmers Express Road in the Coyote District. The road connects the Valley of Peace with surrounding villages, most of which rely on farming. It was a request for many years from the residents of the various communities, but Minister of Infrastructure, Development and Housing, Honorable Julius Espat, said the project had to be completed in phases.
I couldn't give priority to this road in the initial years because we had to serve others, but knowing that the day would come, and so we did it. I think we did it responsibly. We did it by phases, a little at a time, and then we start looking for partners. We got Cabinet's approval for a portion. We got the Mennonite community in another portion, the large-scale farmers, and then MIDA. So it's a good feeling to know that if you work together, you can achieve what you want. I believe in empowering people, and land gives you power, and infrastructure facilitates the land to increase in value, and so it's a plus, and that's what we try to do to make sure that our people countrywide benefit from the work that we do so that they can improve their lives and quality of life.
How long is it and what's the value?
5 miles plus the first mile, so 6 miles in total, plus I think another half mile in the village, so about 6.5 miles. And the value we had for this was 3.7 if I'm not mistaken, which works out to about $750,000 per mile of paved road, which is an awesome feat.
Deputy Prime Minister Honorable Cordia Hyde spoke of the importance of such an upgrade to those communities, calling it a big deal.
It's a big deal. The minister spoke about the wear and tear on people's vehicles. That's assuming you have a vehicle. When you don't have a vehicle, it's even harder to get out. Imagine being trapped in our communities and can't get out to go to school or get to work or get to the doctor. These roads honk in those instances, but even more so when you are from the productive sector and you're farmers and you're able to get your produce to the market at a much cheaper cost than you did before. It means more profits, more opportunities for your family, more opportunity to send your children further in school and to build better houses and live better lives, because ultimately that is the goal. Ultimately the goal is to make sure that you provide better for your children, that your children have a better standard of living than you've had. That ultimate test of parenting, and that's the ultimate challenge for the government, to help families realize that, help families fulfill their fullest potential for their children.
95 micro, small and medium enterprises in Belize can access grant financing ranging from $5,000 to $20,000 depending on size and maturity level as part of the Belize Enterprise Empowerment Project funded through the CARICOM Development Fund with $800,000. Through the program, businesses will be helped to address challenges and improve business skills, financial literacy and digital capabilities. The project will be launched via 3 cohorts in 2 years for startups, maturing business, and exporters operating in the orange economy, with businesses in tourism, creative industry, light manufacturing, agro-processing, and aquaculture. Wendy Hernandez, Senior Project Officer at Beltrade, explained the requirements to receive a grant.
In order for you as an MSME to be eligible to access this grant, you will have to be able to participate in business trainings. There's going to be a business training that will be a 5-day, and it will be delivered in a hybrid mode, and it will include topics such as business development, digital marketing, and also financial management. The SBDC Belize and also the Export Belize, which are units of Beltrade, will also provide each entrepreneur with a business advisor that will guide you throughout the entire process of the project for you to implement the grants that you will be provided or offered. The third and last component is business pitches. You will also be trained, MSMEs that are shortlisted will be trained on how to deliver the business pitch, but also you will have hands-on experience. Once you receive the training, you will present your business pitches to a technical evaluation panel that will be formed by DFC, BCCI, Beltrade, and Niche. So how does the grant component work? We have categorized businesses in 3 specific groups. We have startups, we have maturing, and we also have near export and export ready. Businesses that are in the category of startups will be eligible to $5,000 Belize. Businesses that are in the maturing category will be eligible to $7,000 Belize, and near export and export-ready companies will be eligible to $20,000 Belize. If you're a company that you're operating for less than 2 years, you will be categorized within the startup category. If you're a company that you have been established and you're ready to increase locally, you will be considered a maturing company. These two main categories, you have to be 100% Belizean-owned business to be able to access the grants. Then you're export-ready or export-ready. You have to be a company that has 3 years establishment in the country and that you're ready to start exporting internationally. This component allows for 50.
Residents of the Malpanj JNW area are eagerly awaiting the reopening of their bridge after a project was initiated to replace the structure with a more stable, higher one. The previous structure was fragile and would often flood out. On Wednesday, Chief Engineer Evandale Moody explained that the bridge and approaches should be completed within a few weeks.
All right, so the JNW bridge has progressed very well. The bridge itself is substantially completed. The only thing pending is the construction of the approach on both sides of this bridge. I know that there was a recent rainfall, I think about 2 or 3 weeks ago, where that area was also inundated by floodwaters, but as you may have seen, or if you know, the bridge was adequately placed because the runoff that was experienced at that location was still far below the finished road level for the bridge itself. So in terms of elevation, we believe that we have made a correct decision in terms of the hydraulic capacity of the bridge itself. We expect that we will finish the approach to that bridge, I would say, within another 2 to 3 weeks. We're trying to engage a subcontractor for them to build the approach for us. It's not going to be paved at this time, but it's just to fill and build both approaches so that we could start using the bridge within, I would say, within another 3 to 4 weeks thereabouts.
So like mid-September it should be?
I would say about that. It wouldn't take us that much long, but we have to go through a procurement period for us to get a contractor to do the approach.
Turning to the north, as part of the ongoing Corozal-Sarteneja Road Upgrade Project, Sarteneja is to have a portion of their main street paved. That part of the project has begun and is a dream come true for many residents of the community. Chief Engineer Evandale Moody shed more light on the project.
With respect to the Corozal-Sarteneja project, we are paving the main street going into Sarteneja, but no local streets within Sarteneja. So we're only bringing the main highway to where the first bus stop is in Sarteneja, and that's where our project terminates.
In more police news, police have arrested and charged a 49-year-old man from Kaya for the crime of attempted sexual assault and engaging in sexual activity in the presence of a minor. The minor in question is an 8-year-old boy. Investigations have revealed that on different days earlier this month, the minor was left alone at home with the man who is a family friend. The minor reported to his mother that the man attempted to force him to touch his genitals. The matter was reported to police on Tuesday. And Honorable Julius Espat, a representative for Kaya South, was questioned today on being endorsed and not having to participate in a contested convention, that is. Espat said that no one else submitted their name to contest for Kaya South and declared that the next general election would be his last.
Well, that's a political, that's a phase. The party decided that they wanted all area reps to throw in their names and open it up. That was a time frame, I think, about, Mike, was it a month, 2 months? 2 months, and nobody submitted their name in Poli Kaya South, so, you know, I was the only one left, and we will continue with pride to serve our people. So to me, it's an honor. 2 times in opposition, 1 time in government, hopefully 1 more time. I don't think it will be more than 1 more time. the gray hairs are coming out. The stress on the family is immense. The love and dedication and passion that I have takes a bit out of you. But I don't do it anywhere else or anywhere else or any other way. I am given a responsibility and I will do it to the best of my ability. And when I can't do no more, I'll mentor somebody else to move on. That's what we have to do. But I'm not a career politician. I think one more shot and that will be enough for me.
And with that, we've come to the end of our newscast. A repeat can be viewed on this station later tonight at 9 and again tomorrow at midday. Join us again tomorrow for another news broadcast. I am MarKeisha Young. Have a safe and enjoyable evening.